don't hear you.
Hey, all right. I'm sorry about that.
Oh, it's okay.
I had my mute button on.
Oh yeah, okay, no problem. Yeah, man.
Good to be back with you, brother. Another week went by. It went by fast for me, and I didn't mind because I know I'm coming back to Monday to hear what you have to say. And we shared a few words before the live broadcast, and always wise, always wisdom. But I just can't see and understand how many of us in the Black community especially can't put or connect the dots. They just don't see it. And we all develop at a different rate. And every a corn kernel doesn't pop at the same rate in the bag when you put it in the microwave. But after a while, we should get it. And again, some of us do. We'll be okay. But the vast majority of us seems to be hooked on so many different things that are not important. And that's why you have a mission in your life, and you're doing it well, and you're waking a lot of people up. So I thank you for that, brother.
Well, thank you, brother. Thank you for providing the platform. I just want to greet you again and the people under the sound of my voice. And yeah, you know, the level of commitment and dedication that you have to getting out the right information to our people is inspiring. So a lot of times,
Thank you.
and I've talked to a few people about this, when it comes to Black males, you either have you have to make a decision about something that's very important. And a lot of times the reason why a lot of our men can't make the right decision about this is because they use fiat against them. And you know, in America, you have to have that to survive.
Yeah.
And so this is so when you get someone that's willing to make the kind of sacrifice that you have, then it sets up an automatic blueprint for us. And that's something that we downplay. And so I just want to thank you for that, brother. And you know, this topic today is extremely important because one of the things that we see now, well, we saw this, you know, a while back, but they're attacking everything that you hold, you know, as something to be proud of. And see, we have to look at, so if you would put that Luciferian owl up there for me, Lance, please. I want to explain something to our people.
Sure.
See, the biggest deception that our people live under has to do with being deceived about who these people actually worship. And I know I've said this before. I know Black people get upset about this. But I've done a lot of studying on this over the years. The religion that they gave to our people was another tool to subdue you.
Yes.
The way I can use an example. So here in California, even with the atrocities that happen here, they actually brought in, when the Spanish came here and slaughtered a lot of people, just like they did all over the country. But particularly when they came here and started slaughtering Black Indians, they knew that in order to keep them in a docile position, that they had to bring in Catholicism. So all the way from San Diego, the lowest or most southern point of California, all the way up to Sonoma County in Northern California, the name of this priest, this father, Juniper Serra, who built hundreds, if not thousands, of missions. All of the streets are named after him, the major streets in California, no matter which city you go in. There are a lot of buildings and schools named after him. So this was something that they have always used, like we know they did in Akibalon as well. But they have always used this tactic. But when you really study their history from a religious perspective, it's not separated from their politics, okay? And this is something our people was tricked about, but now that you know they are forced to look at it, it's still hard for us to accept. Well, not us, for certain of our people to accept. But this is the actual, this Luciferian god, this owl, is who they worship all around the world. And these are the elite people that run all of the major countries and corporations in the world on a global basis. These people are what you can refer to as a crimogenic people. They have produced all of the wars. They have put under this worship of this Luciferian deity. They have traded guns for drugs, as we saw them do, or drugs for guns, as we saw them do in Nicaragua and Central America and South America, and with the Sandinistas. And they traffic guns for drugs in other parts of the world, that these very weapons are going to be turned against our own sons and daughters that go in the U.S. military.
Yes.
So you're talking about a level of deception that our people still don't comprehend. Okay, and I hear this all the time. Yes, it's okay to quote scripts, but you got to comprehend something. That did not come out of these people, okay? That came out of us. That is just a plagiarized manuscript, a narrative, although it does have historical truth in it. I'm not saying it doesn't. But you have got to stop being lazy-minded, okay? And when I say that, I'm not saying this to try to put anybody down, because now we're tasked now with teaching our own children. And this is, actually, this is a good thing. However, it's going to initially hurt us because we're going to still, a certain section of us are still going to be teaching them based on what we have been taught through this. Okay?
Yeah.
Now, that's going to create a big problem. They're already trying to shut down certain educational plans in certain cities. I've heard this just today, that have Black populations that are higher than the norm. So they use the same playbook to discourage our people. But I often say, if you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. So the reason why I say this is a crimogenic society, okay, because these people sell death wares around the world. And we are dealing with people that worship death. Okay, you got to get that in your head. They're not doing this that they taught you, okay? So now, with this in mind, we're going to go into our text today, because they have deceived our people. This is why they're trying to remove so much of our history, because American history is Black history.
That's right.
They're intertwined. You cannot separate. If you go back to the very first time the Europeans set foot on the shores of America, in St. Augustine, and then in Mexico, okay, then you know that they have always used the same playbook. In fact, based on the history that was written by many native scholars, such as my spiritual teacher, Dr. Kojo, rest in power, they actually did the same thing they did, the Egyptologists did with the information they got out of Kemet. They plagiarized it, and then they replaced you with themselves. So I wanted to start out with that picture because the history books don't tell the real story of America. And this is why you have these people running around with masks on and khakis and holding a flag, and they always come to our community because of an inferior complex. And basically that same KKK spirit that always terrorized our people. So we're going to look at the truth today, and we're going to look at the real reason why what's happening. Remember, we were talking about in the last video how Katrina was a warning and a prophecy, and this 20-year vortex is getting ready to open. Well, they get this too from this deity. They know. So unlike us, they plan decades in advance. So by the time it hits you, it's too late to respond. You can respond, but you're not going to fully stop it. You have to come up with a detour plan, a counterattack.
That's right.
The title of our show today, Against All Enemies, Foreign and Domestic, what is the greatest threat to America? Now, I know with the brilliant people that are connected to the Lance Show Network, LanceScurv Network show, that you recognize this because this is a paragraph in the oath of office that all elected officials have to swear by to the Constitution of the United States. They can change or do, say whatever they want, but this is, and the reason why they take this oath, okay, is because you are telling the people that elected you to go stand for them and be their collective voices, who you have turned your back on, okay, and allowed Luciferians to fully engulf everything that America says it is built on. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to look at what is the greatest threat to America. Lance, one of those pictures I wanted to put up, I think it's, well, no, that's okay.
You
Anyway,
sure?
yeah, I'm sure. I'll get to it in a second.
Okay.
But according to the FBI and the Department of Homeland Security, that the greatest threat to America is white supremacy and neo-Nazi organizations and groups. I don't care what else they're telling you. Since 2008, the election of Barack Obama, this group have tripled. Okay. And while the low vibratory white people keep us in an emotional state of physical terror, this is only one part or aspect of domestic terrorism. However, now let me ask, can you imagine Ghana changing its storied history? Could you imagine any proud nation changing its very history to not include the people that actually helped build it. And so when they get out here and they say this is our country, this is the reason why you're dealing with uneducated people, and this is the reason why they love those type of people, because they are operating strictly off the fact that in their mind, as long as they can be on top of black folks, then nothing else matters. Okay, and see, that's the part that we miss. But today we're going to go into real American history, and we're going to talk about why we are having this situation now where they're trying to destroy Black history. And one other thing I'll say about this is you can never destroy Black history. That is impossible. Good luck with that. Because like all throughout history, so we know that the Greeks changed the Medu to hieroglyphics, the terminology. But here in the Americas, they call them petroglyphs, or it's really basically the Medu written on rocks. So our people in the form of griots have always sat down and passed down our history orally. Now, again, we did not think that one day there will be people coming to these shores 500 years later that actually did write manuscripts and narratives and kept records. So that's why there are certain records that can never be destroyed, okay, if you know where to get them from. So what most people don't know is that the greatest threat to America is the erasure of real American history. The leading aspect of this is education. Now, this is very important to remember, that education is really like the sword, okay? Because when you get educated, you're supposed to be educated to teach your people in subsequent generations how to survive socioeconomically in every other way. That is the real purpose of education, okay? But throughout world history and American history, white scholars have always taken their plagiarized history and replaced real Black history with their made-up stories of conquest. American history is Black history, as I said before. And in reality, a person or persons who have to subjugate human beings as inferior are in effect inferior themselves. And this is why uneducated whites, like I said before, support this group of people so much. In America, the things that they do that actually keep us in an emotional state where we can't actually sit down and plan things is they sow social unrest, like we see now, division and economic duress. When you fire 500,000 people, that's going to cause a ripple effect across the nation. To youth, to what they are actually, to blind you to what they're doing, and also to turn our youth into marooning gangs that are, what do we call it? Socially deviant. When in any society, empowering your youth helps to sustain the integrity and the future of a nation. Yes. Any real leader knows this, okay? But see, this is not about leadership. This is about subjugation and low vibratory energy, in which, because they are subdued under this Luciferian deity, that's how they get down. So to quote our great musical genius Curtis Mayfield, it is the educated people that are running the lives of our society. So, as I said, today we'll examine the true history of American history and the other major aspects. And also, we talked about the Luciferian god they worship. And one of the things that was revealed to me as a result of knowing this is that they are angry because that spell, that sorcery, witchcraft, whatever you want to call it, that they had on our people through this religion and other means is dissipating the power of it. And one of the reasons for that is, again, I always like to say that when our people's pineal glands are open, then that's the time we'll rise. So the other thing too is when they see so-called Latinos, they're mestizos, okay. When they see them, they see melanin, and this is what they don't comprehend. While they are looking at the Spanish European Cortez image, that they have this big image of Cortez in a lot of the homes in Southern California. When you think about it in that sense, this is how the men actually see themselves. You got to let that sink in, because so the thing that they're learning now is that the Spanish ancestors that raped their mothers and grandmothers and great grandmothers, okay, really did a number on them, okay, by denying them to have any type of pride in their native heritage, their Black and brown native heritage, through their matrilineal lineage, then it really, really took something away from them. And the thing about it is, more than anything, and I hear this from our people, is the disappointment that they feel. Because, Lance, you and I talked about the power of betrayal.
Yes.
And Black people have been betrayed so much by these Luciferians and these other people that they control, the vampires, that not just psychologically, physically, spiritually, any other kind of leap, but Black people are disappointed that they actually chose that heritage over their native heritage. And make no mistake about it, they are native to this land. I know a lot of people have problems with that. I know the history, okay? Dr. Kojo was one of the foremost professors in ancient American history. Okay, I've been to his house. I've seen all of the pictures. And he taught at San Diego State and New Mexico State. So this is not something I'm theorizing. This is something that I had to learn. And I think with them, I know with them, is that a lot of them are going to have to be retaught. Because when white people see melanated people, they see us. This is what they don't comprehend. They don't see that side that you are trying to stay connected to. So, and just like in Puerto Rico with the Tainos, now the difference with the Puerto Ricans and the people from the Great Antilles, the Caribbeans, is that they embrace that part of they embrace their millennial lineage, okay, matrilineal lineage of their mothers. Like I was telling you, Lance, 60% of them do. So yes. This makes them more connected. And we know this from the East Coast. One of the shocking things that happened to me when I came here 21 years ago is I was in Oakland, and I passed by and I saw this restaurant, Mexican restaurant. Oh, cool. So I go in there, a bunch of white people, at least in my mind, I thought it was, right? I'm saying, okay, the white people, I had been in California literally a week. I said, oh, the white people in California, they like Mexican food, right? And so I'm ordering my food and I'm looking around at the table and all of them speaking Spanish. And I'm like, whoa, wait a minute here. What is this? These are European, European people, but they're, so I immediately called my boy. I said, hey, I need to talk to you right now. He's like, what's wrong, man? What's wrong with you? I said, let's meet up at, this spot we used to meet up in Berkeley. And I met up with him and we sat down and he said, yeah, man, welcome to California. He said, nah, man. He said, because, the Latino piano people on the East Coast are dark as you and me. So I'm sitting there saying, are you telling me that these European people sitting in this Mexican restaurant are Mexican? He said, yes. I said, okay, I get it now.
Mm-hmm.
So they had this caste system in Mexico and go throughout where they wholesale raped Black and brown women wherever they went, jumping from island to island, country to country. Mm-hmm. I remember Dr. Francis Cress Welsing telling us this years ago, that when they would go back to that island they left or that country a year or two later, then they learned about genetics because all the children were dark skinned.
See?
So then that helped them prepare, because I'm telling you, brother, 86%, 90% of Mexicans are Spanish, European males, and mestizo, and native women who are mestizos. Okay, 86% of them are in El Salvador, 84% are in Honduras and Guatemala. No, 84% is in Nicaragua, and 82% is in Honduras and Guatemala. They did a number in Central America, bro, and Mexico, and northern South America, because the Portuguese, they raped Brazil, and that's why you see the second largest population behind Kibalan is in Brazil, right? So going back to that was a shock to me initially. And I eventually, studied the culture over the years, and now I know what's going on. So they did the exact same thing to us. And the final thing I'll say about that before we go into the presentation is that when they learn to compartmentalize their ethnicity, okay, because I should, through a cultural lens, because you have now the situation where Blacks had to go through the same thing with the Creoles, okay, the Black boule or bourgeoisie class. So all of these people, they actually were Black men, or how does Frantz Fanon say it? Black skin, white mask. And we still have this dynamic that exists in our community today. So this is something they're going to have to work through. I hear a lot of them are asking why Black people are not out in the streets as well. And, I agree. We should not be in the streets, okay? Because what happened was they turned their anger against these melanated people because their initial plan, by doing all the things, cutting off different things, that they would excite Black people, like our history have shown, where we just go out in the street angry, right? And then they have this excuse to bring the full brunt of the military-industrial complex against its own citizens. So, Lance, if you would put up, you see the picture of the Black Book by David Barton. Yeah, okay, that's fine. Yeah, that's it. I recommend this book. David Barton is the type of European man I do have some respect for, because here's a man that is actually much like Graham Hancock, that I learned a lot about archaeology from. They know a real man can deal with truth. Okay, it's only an inferior man that can't deal with truth.
That's right.
And so during this time, so I'm gonna set up a scenario that actually happened, because I had several of them that I had to choose from, but this one actually was the one that I think would shed more light on what we're talking about today. But in Wilmington, North Carolina, in 1898, we witnessed the violent overthrow of an elective state government. In the 1800s, late 1800s, Wilmington, North Carolina, largest city with a Black population, it was a booming economy, with Black population enjoyed a level of prosperity that was only reserved for white people. Now, at this time, all Black people were Republicans. Now, I want to stop there. See, again, I want to go back to that Luciferian deity. It does not play this game that they have taught you about right and left, or Republicans, Democrats, because in the 1800s, all Black people were Republicans, all of them. Okay. So this is why these Black senators, Republicans, were, the first Black senators that actually in the United States, because we know before the Continental Congress, John Hanson and the Moors actually was the reason why George Washington, okay, and those had what they need, the supplies, in order to fight against the British. Okay. So at this time, all Blacks were Republicans, and the racists were Democrats, who were avowed white supremacists. And so the way that they defeated them was they created a third party, because they were able to convince some of these racist Southern Dixiecrats that what they were doing was morally wrong. Okay, so they convinced enough of them where they were able to start this third party, mostly made up of displaced white, economically stressed farmers, called the Populist Party. And so a group of these Democrats who had a change of heart and split with the white supremacists were called the Fusion Party. So like when they had the thing with the Tea Party that time. You remember that?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So so in 1894 and 1896, the Fusion Party defeated the Democrats. And the Fusion Party was a fusion between the Republicans and also the disenfranchised Democrats. Okay, so whites and Blacks, Republicans shared power between each other. And this multicultural government did not sit well with the state Democratic Party. And that's why you hear a lot of the same rhetoric. Because, see, they use the same playbook, brother. Because when you have something that works, why would you change it?
Right.
The only thing that's blowing up in their face now is black folks are sitting back and say, aha, we see you. The first eye is open.
That's right. Mm-hmm.
So that is the big difference. And it's really causing them to scramble. And that Luciferian God is putting a lot of pressure on them. So that's why they had to go find melanated people. Okay, whether they want to accept that or not, it's not going to change that fact. So what happened was the Democrats said, okay, we're going to do something about this. So a bunch of these white supremacists who were politicians, we know today as neo-Nazis, they came up with a plan that was successful, and they established a blueprint that wealthy whites still use today, mainly through the media. And they formulated a playbook to stoke on white fears. Now, the reason why I had that book put up there is because, again, these were black Republicans, our first black senators. Okay? And so you have been incorrectly taught in public schools by people who deliberately deceived our people. Okay? This is why you must fight back. Mm-hmm. Because our children are going to be caught in a quagmire. You're going to have to make a decision. So this playbook actually was designed to stoke white fears. And it was called the Democratic Handbook of 1898. And their two major themes was to consolidate the white vote. And this is a white man's country. So when you hear that rhetoric today, that this is a white man's country, or that we're taking our country back, or make America great again, this is where it comes from. Okay?
Yeah, that's just like I always say, that's like the neighbor who borrows a tool from you and keeps it so long that they forget and think it's theirs, and you have to borrow it back and keep it, even though it's yours.
That's a good one. Actually, that's a perfect analogy of what black folks deal with. That is a perfect analogy. And then feel some kind of way when you ask for it back.
Right.
Like, no, this don't belong to you, really. So now that they have the Ring cameras and other ways of seeing things, cameras in the sky, they still want to deny, their dirty deeds. But the biggest weapon they used was the media. And the one thing they did, okay, and I talked about Stephen Fetching before, who was this black man who became the first black millionaire in Hollywood, because all of white media played by this playbook. Hollywood, when you look at their history, is very racist.
Of course, still is.
Still is.
Yeah.
And so Stephen Fetching is like the coons we see today. That the only way that they can feel any type of thing about themselves, empowering themselves, is empowering themselves with a handbook that is used to degrade our people. So I don't know how, I couldn't do it, brother. I don't know how they can look in the mirror, honestly. I've often wondered, and I listen to more of them now just to kind of see they're actually just regurgitating the actual playbook of these white supremacists. That's what they're doing. All of them are doing.
Even in the modern day, when you look at hip hop and rap and stuff, not all of them, but the majority, it's another way of coonism. They may not be tap dancing, but shooting each other, killing each other, calling each other the B word and the women portraying themselves as playthings. It's directly related to that because that's the narrative they want us to absorb and our children to absorb, and it makes them feel good also because it's keeping. It should not be a ceiling on our success, but there is a ceiling, and it's real low, and we have to stay under that. Yeah. So they'll pay the money and feel successful with the fiat, but we're not getting anywhere. And just like you said early about the children and the youngsters, if we don't feed into them, that's our future gone. See, they're feeding them for us for something that won't manifest greatness and elevation.
That's right. That's absolutely right. And you know, Malcolm warned us saying that of all things, subjects, we need to study history. Because those that forget their past or don't know their past are destined to repeat it.
Right.
So, so after they came up with this Democratic Handbook of 1898, they started using the media with a lot of blackface. They ran racist cartoons, you know, using people like Stephen Fession and, you know, other people. And they ran inhumane cartoons about Black people.
Yeah.
Okay. It as well as it ran racist ads that played on the white people's fears. And one of the biggest fears that they played on and themes was that Black men were the greatest threat to white women. And we know that that was used throughout our existence in this country to burn down and murder many of our Black people or to lynch them.
Right.
This theme was used. Okay, this is throughout American, this is something they can't wipe out or erase. Mm-hmm. Black folks know that it's ingrained in our genetic memory bank. So, but yeah, this is the one that they actually, they hit, it was like bingo for them because they found something that they could, you know, like rile up all white men together against us.
Yeah.
So and so this statement was that white men need to do all that they can do to protect white womanhood. They featured these cartoons about Black men as monkeys, these ugly cartoons that are preying on the innocent white woman crying. On a prominent, one prominent racist named Rebecca Felton said that if we have to lynch one Black man every day, then that's what we must do. And this was their national racist theme. Okay, so the Democrats, who were the white supremacists at that time, after successfully using the media and coming up with this strategy to denigrate Black men and make them a threat. You remember when George Bush Sr. was running against the guy from New York, the caucus, I think his name was? Ron something like that.
Might have, the caucus? Yeah, I think at that time.
From New York, former governor or something of New York.
Mm-hmm.
So he used, so at that time, you may remember this, there was a brother that was released from prison early for whatever reason. And he ended up, unaliving a white lady or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And
just what they needed.
That's just what they needed, brother. Bingo. They started salivating. And then they started running campaigns because he didn't believe in the death penalty. And see, one thing you have to know about, that's why it's dangerous for you to keep kumbayaing, is one thing you have to know is that this Luciferian spirit does not play by the same rules that you claim a Holy Spirit plays by. This is going to crush our children if you don't wake up to this reality. Mm-hmm. Okay. So what happened was After that, they want a wide election. And this was the blueprint for all future elections, like we're saying that they use to this day. So it was the demonization of blacks as a threat to white people and lily white women, and the existence on their backs of who basically built their existence on the back of our ancestors for centuries, of free unpaid labor. Their God was their goal was a total white supremacy government. And the day after the election, a group of white men met, the Democrats, and they unveiled a document called the White Declaration of Independence. I bet a lot of black folks.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
A twisted mind.
That's why they're so much to try to take stuff out of, and mainly the Smithsonian, because that's, where a lot of now this is where I have a problem with HBCUs, okay? Now, HBCUs should actually be the ones that have this information for our children that go to college there for them to learn. But they know that if they do that, then it's going to be harder for our children to go to the Luciferians and ask them for employment. And we did a video on what's going to happen to black people when they can't employ their own people. You remember that?
Mm-hmm.
That day is here, brother. So we got some real soul searching to do. And see, it's not that anytime people can spend $2 trillion, brother, just buying shit, this is what our issue is. We have got to learn to support one another and stop worrying about what they do. So when I support somebody, what they do with the money is not my concern. Okay? I make the decision to support it. I give it to them, because when you give over $430 billion in less than 30 years on the altar of these Luciferians, and all of it leaves our community, what's the difference?
That's right.
So it's no more time for games, okay? There's no more time for that. That time is over with. We are in this is a serious time that our people are facing.
They don't realize it.
They don't realize it. Because now a lot of them are getting caught up into this immigration debate. Stop debating with these people on YouTube. There's no need for that. We got a bigger fish to fry. And nobody cares about you, whether they care about black. Look, the people that are putting forth this plan. Now, I will say this. There is no country in the world that will allow 20 million people to walk. You can't do that in Ghana, can you?
No.
To walk across their borders. You don't know who the hell they are. We know with all the enemies that America have outside of our shores, okay, that we are subject to anybody. How do we know these are all mestizos coming across the border?
Right.
We don't know who.
Just let everybody in.
They let everybody in. Okay. So, in that sense, you have to do something about that. You can't. You can't let that just go. So, however, what they're doing, I disagree with in terms of how they're doing it. Because now, a lot of the people that were here, especially the ones that were born in America, we know the same thing happened to our people, okay? They broke over 500 treaties. They're broken all kinds. They don't keep what we know as agreements or treaties or constitutions or whatever you want to call them, right? This is something they do so that they can get you under an umbrella where you depended on that umbrella,
Right.
and then snatch the safety net from under you, where you don't have a choice now.
That's right.
So, so after this white Declaration of Independence, it contained an ultimatum. And interestingly enough, a copy of this document was preserved by the great-granddaughter of a living relative during that time. So the good thing about our people back during that time is, yes, it is true, a large majority of them could not read or write. But the ones that could always looked out for everybody else. So when they got an important, and they preserved the documents from those times. I've seen documents that go back as far as 1700s. So even some 1600s. But now so what black people would do is they would post them in the church. And this is when the pastors were doing real work. They would teach the people what this meant and what the consequences of it was, right?
Right.
So this black historian, her name was Cynthia Brown, and she preserved a copy in their church that she had gotten from her great-grandmother, and it read, "We will no longer be ruled by black men of African origin." And that's why they came up with the White Declaration of Independence. And this will be accomplished by denying black men voting rights, which we still have to deal with today. Deny them full employment to provide for their families. This is the language in this White Declaration of Independence. So what you're seeing today is just a continuum of the King Alfred Plan and the Project 2025. And although it was a different political party, this same Luciferian spirit was the driver behind it. And this is where our people get okey doke. It doesn't matter which one it is. You've got to understand something, that at the end of the day, the ones that have you subjugated, okay, they don't care what party if you're not going along with their plan, they don't care what party you're in.
Right.
So they also said that they will deny full employment to them and destroy any businesses and economic progress that they make. And they certainly made good on that with burning down the newspaper clippings from a newspaper building or newspaper organization, such as the one we're going to describe here, where there was only one side of the story. So this incident that was hidden from history, like so many others, countless others before it, a black man named Alex Manley was given 24 hours to leave Wilmington, North Carolina, and a group of 100 white men burned down the Daily Record newspaper. Yeah, that's what it was called. They burned the building to the ground. And after that, 2,000 white men began to kill blacks in the city, ran them towards the rivers and oceans, and many blacks were forced to abandon everything that they had built and their ancestors in that city.
Imagine that.
Man, some of this stuff is so unimaginable. It's just, it's unreal sometimes. Even when I go back and read it, write it, it's like, so you're going to tell me that these same people, okay, these same gun running, drug run trafficking, human trafficking, serial rapists are going to be the ones that we're going to turn the lives of our children over to educate. You've got to be out your mind.
Right.
You've got to be out your mind.
And they're going to do it with a smile.
Huh?
Because they're going to say, hey, fool, you didn't give me your children? Okay, no problem.
Oh, wow, thank you. I don't have to kidnap them. Wow, that's incredible. So this Democrat Party, which was, as we said, the white supremacists of that time, they printed newspapers celebrating the overthrow of a city government ran by black folk. Okay, the hypocrisy of acting like when other governments around the world do this, like Burkina Faso, that they are demonized when they, when they actually do the same thing. Okay, through the jackal and other, economic hitmen and other things like that. But they use the Jim Crow laws to continue this social and economic tyranny of black people. Now, I'm going to switch to a very important part of history so we can debunk these crazy people that think they can go to black communities and this is our country and we didn't, blah, blah, blah. We're getting ready to deal with that right now because what white people, the uneducated, have been taught by the educated white people who, by the way, had to deceive them first. That's why they don't have no more need for them. Because now they have AI. They don't need you they can put anything on AI and put this out. They don't need white people that were uneducated or the ones that was educated in the wrong way. They don't need them no more. And so now they're starting to feel the heat that black folks have had to live in for centuries. So let's switch to real American Revolutionary Wars. While they crying about this is their country and they did this, because black men fought in every war in American history. So, brother, that first picture up there of Peter Salem, okay. Now, they want not him. It's another picture where they're on a boat.
Okay, let me see.
Okay, they're on a boat. So the Revolutionary Wars and the black heroes that were written out of history, and the black men who actually fought to preserve America.
Take a look at these are the photos I have.
That's it.
That's it there?
That's it. Right?
Okay. All right.
That's what. Let me see the other one you have. Let me see the other one you have. No. Okay. Oh, so you didn't get. Okay, keep going.
Yeah, that's it. That's it.
That's it. Okay. So yeah, you can go back to the boat. Yeah. Okay, great, brother. Thank you. So one of the things that sorry, brother. Can you go back to that picture of the older looking black man? That's the one I want to. Yes, right there. Now, how many of you, well, all of us were taught in public school about Paul Revere, right? The British are coming. The British are coming, right? But how many of you know that? So actually, this is not a picture of the guy I'm getting ready to talk about, but that's okay. You can leave him there because I'm coming to him next. The person I'm talking about are two of all of them. Actually, without their heroic actions in the Revolutionary War that actually made the United States, without their actions, the America could still be under British rule. Okay, so we've heard this story about the British are coming, right? Where they bragged about, it's a valiant story about Paul Revere and everything riding west and letting people know that the British are coming, right? But how many of our people have ever heard of Wilbur Chesaw? Okay, the black man that rode north at the same time that Paul Revere rode west to warn people in New Hampshire and other northeastern states to go to Boston to stop the British. How many people? If he had not gone to warn the people that were in the northeastern part of the United States that the British were in Boston and they were getting ready to take over or what have you, Paul Revere would have been irrelevant. So when you hear the British are coming, so I say, oh yeah, Wilbur Chesaw, a black man that rode north. As a matter of fact, his ride north actually was more significant because had the British been able to take over Boston, it would have been over. Okay. So we're going to continue with the iconic revolutionary Black War heroes. Let's see here. So in the battle at the Battle of Lexington, and I'm going to mention three of the most iconic battles that they always talk about, that they want to say that white men were the ones. I'll give you a perfect example. And most people don't know this, but Lance, you being from New York, you know this. Teddy Roosevelt and the Rough Riders would have been slaughtered at the Battle of San Juan Hill. But it was the Buffalo Soldiers. So when they used to show that picture, they would show Teddy Roosevelt and the Rough Riders. And then if you were able to pan out, back during that time, you couldn't pan out. They had the Buffalo Soldiers from the 10th Regiment that were around Teddy Roosevelt. In fact, that's how what made him, thrust him into the presidency, right? That great battle for Puerto Rico, for that battle at San Juan Hill. But it was the 10th Regiment of the Buffalo Soldiers that actually turned the tide in that war. Then the Rough Riders came after that. After the 10th Regiment had breached that front line. Okay, so, but the Battle of Lexington, one of the ones that you hear these white supremacists, their chests all poked out, we fought these wars and blah. Many black men died in one of the most celebrated American Revolutionary Wars. One of the most celebrated soldiers was Prince Estabrook, who gave his life to save an entire platoon of Americans by falling on a grenade that was thrown into their camp. Now, a lot of people are confused when they hear, well, how could you call a slave a prince? These were Moors, okay? These were the ones, John Hanson and the Moors, that actually ran the first Continental Congress. A lot of people say that John Hanson was the first president. But the difference is there was no constitution. Okay, it was a Continental Congress. So if you want to be technical about it, it's no. But even with that, they caucusized John Hanson. When we know, I've seen the pictures I've been to the Moorish temples in Atlanta, the Shrine of Black Madonna. See, our history have been preserved by our people. You just don't know where to go. Okay, we have these documents and we have these pictures. The other good thing is you had historians that went to these battlefields and they wrote down the history that they actually, now these were people that were there, okay? Unlike the scripts that you quote so much, these are people that's supposing, because the person you called Jesus was not a Christian, okay? So there are a lot of things that we have to really come to grips with. Nobody's saying that you can't continue to worship whatever you want to. We're saying just have an open mind about it and stop condemning other Black people who don't see. You know, you got 50 churches in one block of Black folks, all of them splitting up their money, and we don't own anything in that community. The time for this ignorance is over, man.
Yep.
Because you're not going to get any money from a bank. But look how much money that we're giving back to the very people that have the structure in our society that keeps Blacks perpetually on the bottom of the social-economic ladder. Haven't we figured this out yet?
It's like they gave us the noose and we're the ones helping to tighten it up around our neck.
There you go. And we're the ones that help them find the tree. Oh, Massa, I got a big tree over here. I got a big tree over here. You know, it's crazy. Okay, so I want to talk about James Armistead. One of the, to me, James Armistead is the hero of the war that turned the tide in the Revolutionary War. Okay. And I remember years ago, this white guy, Glenn Beck, who was very popular, was doing a show where he got actually angry when he had David Barton on there with the book I suggested. And David Barton was schooling him on real American history. And he got angry. He said, well, why are we always talking about the white people, the white people? He was like, these are Black revolutionary heroes. Like David Barton said, if it wasn't for James Armistead, America would still be under British colonial rule. This is a fact. Okay. And that's the man that you just had up there. So James Armistead was a Black man who actually was a double spy that turned the Revolutionary War in the favor of the Americans. And how did he do that? He actually tricked General Cornwallis, who, you know, just using cunning, because the average brother during that time had to be very cunning on his feet. Okay, because if you wasn't, you're going to be taken out. Yes.
Question.
Yes.
Are you scared of rats?
Huh?
Are you scared of rats?
Okay, Lance, can you hold on for a second?
Yeah, sure.
Lance?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hey,
Most definitely.
Oh, yeah.
Are you scared of rats?
Am I scared of rats? What?
Rats.
Oh.
There's a rat over there.
Oh, really?
I'm not scared, but
Okay, family, we'll wait for him to come back. He had some business to take care of. There's a video I made that I'm trying to get up, but there's some type of technical difficulty with it. If you notice, I may have put it up earlier before, but I'm trying to get it up there after the show.
Okay.
All right, brother. Let me see.
Sorry about that.
No need to apologize.
Yeah, just had to deal with the issue inside.
Right.
So anyway, so we were talking about James Armistead, who I bet you the majority of people walking around and with masks on and trying to terrorize our people like the KKK used to do, don't even know this about James Armistead. Okay, like I said, he actually tricked General Cornwallis. And if you want to talk about a real patriot, you're talking about James Armistead, okay? Because he thought, General Cornwallis thought that he was gathering intel for the British Army. But what he didn't know was that Armistead risked his life for the country he loved. And I'll tell you something, bro. I don't care what nobody say. Black folks love America, okay?
Yep.
Say whatever they want. And the reason why is because our blood is in this soil.
Right.
We're talking about over 50 million of our ancestors' blood is in this soil. But the other thing that James Armistead did, he also tricked Benedict Arnold, who is known in history as a traitor to America. He was a brilliant military tactician. And imagine James Armistead being able to trick him, sit down, go over the plans, and then take it back to the real person that he was fighting for, which was General Lafayette, who was the real person that he gave his loyalty to. Now, here's the interesting thing about this and why they're always wiping out our history is because there's a big picture in the chambers of Congress of General Lafayette. But there's no mention of James Armistead. None. I bet you if you ask any black person who James Armistead is, the majority of them cannot tell you. And see, this is what we need to arm ourselves with when we're dealing with this higher level of sorcery. Okay, because we know that they're liars. Okay, we know this. So for you to pretend like this stuff doesn't exist, you're playing right along with this. Okay. Yeah, so unlike what's his name, Benedict Arnold, who was a traitor, he was a white. I don't know if he was a general or colonel or something, but they say he was a brilliant military tactician.
Mm-hmm.
Now imagine he betrayed America to go to the British. But yeah, you have a black man here that risked his, because if they had found out that he was a double spy working for Lafayette and George Washington, they would have cut his head off in public. I guarantee you that. Bruh, they would have cut him in pieces. No question. Okay, so let's go to this picture of the first black guy you had there. Now, this is arguably, yes, one of the most important black men in American history when it comes to politics and government. This is the first, even though they lie and say there's no black Speaker of the House, never been. This is Joseph Rainey. He is the first black Speaker of the House and also the first black representative in Congress. And he was elected to Congress as the Speaker of the House in 1870. Now, the history books barely record any mention of Joseph Rainey, but as the first black Speaker of the House, in his first speech to Congress in January, I don't have the exact date, but in his first speech to Congress, he advocated for the use by Congress of federal troops against the KKK that Democrats would use to terrorize black Americans. Now, do you see a similar history playing out in America today, only with other melanated people? See, history repeats itself only for those that are able to see it. And then
Yes.
we learn valuable lessons from it. But when they have us caught up into Glorilla won the BET Awards for, what a shame. I know our ancestors, they're turning over in their graves. When I think about my mother and father and your parents and other people I know and our ancestors, this is a slap in the face to them.
Big
to
time.
what they believe, what they stood for. Okay. Not just what they believe, what they actually lived and stood for. And even though I'm not a Christian, all of us were raised, we have roots in that.
Right.
And this is sending the wrong message, where you can actually, it's just sending the wrong message. And our people really have to come to grips with what we're facing right now. And, move ourselves beyond this nonsense. And again, when I talk about these things, like you, brother, it's not a personal attack on the entertainer.
Right.
I don't know Glorilla. She might be a nice person. I'm just looking at the manifestation of her fruit. Okay, that's what I'm looking
Indeed.
at. Her behavior. I don't know her. I just look at the fruit, and then that tells me, okay, like I always say, if I planted an apple tree and I see one orange on it, I know something is wrong with that tree. Okay, so that's all I'm gonna say about that. But imagine the first black. Now, why was it necessary for the first black Speaker of the House, the first black representative of Congress, to ask for protection from the white supremacists who were the Democratic Party at that time, to send in federal troops against the KKK, who are, and the spirit of them are still the greatest threat to domestic threat to America to this day, their ancestors in that spirit. Okay, we can go to the next picture with them on that boat. Yeah, not that one, with them on the boat where they have Peter Salem. Okay, now this is, oh yeah, okay. So this is Peter Salem, okay? And Peter Salem is a black man that should be absolutely, well, white folks should be thankful to him. Again, we're looking at a situation without this brother, okay, that no one, the British colonial powers would have destroyed the American forces in the Revolutionary War at this time. So Prince Whipple, what happened was, so Prince Whipple was the real hero of this particular incident. That when they had to fight the Revolutionary War against the British, and this particular incident in history, where what happened was in 1980, the scholars, white scholars, like they did when the Egyptologists plagiarized the Medu from Kemet into hieroglyphics and other derivatives, Demotic. He was the real hero because he saved them from the onslaught that was coming from the British that day. And what happened was the white scholars looked at this and said, oh no, this is a Sabo. This is the white slave owners, what's his name? Thomas Grosvenor, slave. They changed it. When the people and historians that were actually at this war, this battle, that drew this picture said absolutely 100% this is Peter Salem, okay, who was a free person, okay, that was fighting on behalf of the American government. And again, we know he's somebody that was aligned with John Hanson, okay, but Peter Salem was the reason why so whenever they talk about our heroes, this is why these uneducated white people that be marching in our community with this hate, they don't know this because they haven't been taught this either, okay? That they changed this saying that Thomas Grosvenor, the white man you see there, was the slave owner, and that Peter Salem was a Sabo, who was a slave of Thomas Grosvenor. So you see how they do that? Even though they knew, these scholars knew that this was Peter Salem, they changed it in the American history books. Lastly, I want to talk about two men who absolutely 1000% are two of the greatest American, if you want to call them patriots. A patriot is just somebody who loved their country and that would, give their lives for it. If you really want to know, Prince Whipple, and again, when you hear that Prince, you know that these are black free men, Moors who, a lot of them came out of royalty in Spain, okay, or their descendants of. Now, I know a lot of people say the Moors are traitors to, indigenous people or whatever, but the Moors actually ruled Spain for 700 years. See, before what we know as white racism in this country, you go to any European country, including Spain, and you see all these pictures of these black people that, established medicine, law, education, theology, mathematics, astronomy, all of these disciplines. They brought this to Europe and for 700 years. Okay, so these are Prince Whipple and Oliver Cromwell. Okay, they were the two black men that you see in the picture of Washington crossing the Delaware. I couldn't get a picture of that because, see, what happened, what they do is when they know that certain ones of us are searching for this knowledge and know this knowledge, they're already blocking it, brother. But we do have the documents. We do have pictures. I can't get it. I can't find it on the internet. But we do know this, that Prince Whipple and Oliver Cromwell, the two black men that actually are in the picture of Washington crossing the Delaware, were the two brave black Revolutionary War heroes on the front of the boat. And white soldiers have also written in the history books and have said that they were Washington's slaves. But the historians, white scholars that were not there, have written in the history books and have said that they always use this, they were Washington's slaves. But the historians who actually drew the picture and the descendants of a lot of the soldiers that were there absolutely verified that before the whitewashing of American history, that they were rightfully thought of as American heroes, these two black men. So, you know, it comes down to how much are we going to, or how much longer are we going to continue to play this game where we know that this spirit is, you can call it, see, you've been told it's a Holy Spirit, but we know that it's an unholy spirit. I already know a lot of our black folks, that's why you get upset with me. I'm way beyond that. Because now we're talking about so they're dividing us throughout the diaspora. Thank you, Creature. That's what I wanted to say when I wrap this up. And we need to be very careful, okay? Because like Dr. John Henry Clark and our other scholars have always told us, we have no friends.
That's right.
It's going to be the black diaspora, okay? Your personal feelings is one thing. But when you are turning a whole segment of our diaspora against each other, that's a problem.
Mm-hmm.
That's a major problem. So, you know, we still have a lot of in-house cleaning to do. You know, the Luciferians are winning when they have us fighting against each other. And even to some extent fighting against other melanated people, because all cultures have to go through their aha moment, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Or what we like to say, get their ninja card. They have to. Because the truth of the matter is, you're not a European Spanish male, okay? That is a fact. And they don't see you as that. And when they set up their, I was talking about the 16 different categories, social categories that they structured with mestizos and the mulattoes, which was really, the mulattoes was the ones who were the offspring of European Spanish males and Black indigenous women. So they are the ones that put this skin caste system, and it's throughout the globe. It's in India, it's in Africa, wherever you go, in Central America, South America, Mexico, wherever, global. It's global.
Yeah.
It's a disease. And so even when you look at the hierarchy in Mexico, you have what they call incorrectly Afro-Latinos. They're in the southern portion of Mexico.
Right.
And then the further you get up, the lighter the people get. And then you get to the border towns where the ones who are coming up, some from, you know, central Mexico were a little darker, you start to see that again. But they did the same thing they did with our people in media and all other places where, so I'll finish on this thought so our people can be clear about something. This is what Dr. Francis Cress Welsing was saying, and Dr. Neely Fuller was saying this as well. That if you don't understand racism, and you don't systemic racism, and you don't understand anything. And this is what they implemented around the globe, whether they were called Republicans or Democrats. And as you can see, they flip-flop throughout history based on, you know, on a lot of different factors. But to end on this, what I was going to say is that when they went back after raping the women, to every country they went to, our women, Black and brown women, and they found out a year or two later that all the children were dark. So they set up this caste system, and the way that they did it, then they got a lesson in genetics. That,
firsthand.
Yeah, firsthand. You know, not that stuff, that eugenic stuff. that they've been deceived about. But when they then they said, okay, what we have to do is whenever a light-skinned baby comes out from us, because their particular genetic material is not strong enough to produce anything. Okay, literally. So, and I know a lot of people are not going to like this. I'm talking genetics and scientific facts that white skin, blue eyes, and blonde hair is a genetic defect based on genetics, not neophrasia, okay? Or LanceScurv, because they like to try to take what we say, even though it's the truth, and put a different spin on it to try to penalize you for telling our people truth. But they did a brilliant job with making our people believe that this was the standard of beauty. How? Through the media, through magazines. And you know, we talked about this before, Lance. The old Ebony and Jet magazines was the best thing that happened. We used to have them on the coffee tables, the house.
Yes, indeed. Essence, Sepia. Remember Sepia magazine?
Yeah. Yeah. I tell you, man, you know, that's when we were black and proud. You know what I mean? And
Yep.
we still are. But we just got to resort back to, you know, who we really are. And so I'll end the show today, brother. That's, yeah.
Yes, indeed, brother. Thank you so much. Yeah, just to drop a little quick line in there when you were talking about lighter skin and darker skin. It's over here in Ghana too. The young lady, probably like 19 or 20, and we were on the van together, and she kept glancing at me. And I look back, usually because they figure I'm not from here, I'm a tourist or whatever. And then she says, do you have any brothers, any younger brothers? I'm like, okay, she's giving me an indirect compliment, right? He says, oh, do they look like you? Do they have your color? Because if I was to have a baby with you or one of your younger brothers, it would be a white baby.
Wow.
That's how they see it. Said it.
Wow. There you go.
I have a white baby, and like you're gonna cherish this more than. First of all, you can't have a white baby with me if I was giving you a baby.
That's true.
I'm not white, but up in the mountains and the brainwashing, it's you know, people come here and say, well, this is it's a beautiful place, but there's a lot of that going on. Don't think that everybody here is conscious and aware.
I've heard that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
couldn't believe it.
And you know, the thing is, that's unbelievable. But so that the thing is a lot of them here, they use that system where that's why a lot of them admit. So this is what we were taught: don't get with black people, because your kid's gonna come out black. So this was a deliberate action, and I think this is what upsets black people too. Okay. Is that this was deliberately done by their ancestors.
Yeah.
But that was the conquistador blood and spirit in them that manifested that. All right, Brother Lance, well, I got to get out of here.
Yes, I know you do, brother. Thank you so much for your time and the study and everything all week that you do and setting up for this next week. I'll be here for it.
For sure. And keep up the great belt.
Thank you so much.
Keep up the great work and hold on to the belts.
Oh, we got to hold on to the belts. We can't let them go.
You got to.
Keep throwing punches, brother.
All right, brother. Take care.
All right. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Yes, indeed. Thanks for coming through, everybody. Been pushing hard. I've been doing some things, and as you well know, we're not going to stop. We're going to keep throwing these punches, but it's just so funny, the time that we find ourselves in and the events that are going on, and we need to be aware, not because we're fearful or scared of anything, but we need to be aware on how to navigate everything that's going on around us. That's the bottom line, because as we were speaking before, There's certain fights that are not our fights. There's certain things that we don't need to get emotional over. We need to keep the emotions out of it so we can think clearly and know how to execute a plan. There's so many things that I have detached myself from that are not necessary. It's a time for mental spring cleaning, spiritual spring cleaning. We need to be able to let go of certain things, certain practices, certain habits, certain items, certain people that we're connected to. Doesn't mean you have to abandon them or leave them, but disconnect from the parts of them that just don't get it. And don't get frustrated when you try to explain a point of view that you see so clear and they don't get it. The world, the system, and life will make them see it. Let them know once or twice so they can say, hey, they told me already. This is what they were trying to convince me of. Because many people will cling to their ignorance and hold on to that because that's all they know. And nobody wants to feel as though they have to get back to the back of the line symbolically after going through the school system, being taught certain things, being brainwashed with certain things through the media, even before social media, television commercials and the magazines and other people's idiosyncrasies. It's already in there. And they're going to have to detox from all of that and see things a different way. And they're going to have to get right back to the end of the line and start all over again. So hold on to your truth and hold on to what you know, and really and truly budget your energy at this time. You want to help, you want to enlighten, do so when you see the potential for somebody to absorb it. But when you see these fools out here who want to come at you for what you know and for the way you live, just let it slide off. It's not worth fighting with these people, especially when they look like you and should know better. You see what I mean? Help where you can help, and to anyone who is receptive to your help or knowledge, right? But don't waste your energy right now. If people don't get it right now, they're not really going to get it or looking to get it. And people can see it and just turn their head around and say, you know what? I'm going to live in my own world of la la land. I'm going to go home and get drunk. I'm going to take these pills and go home and get high, whatever. I'm going to lose myself in porn or gossip or whatever. You got to be, and it's not selfish, but at this point, with you stockpiling your knowledge, it doesn't mean you have a whole house full of food in containers and barrels or whatever. You know, we got to stockpile certain things to live, but stockpile the knowledge on how to navigate. Learn how to process your own food. Learn how to get your water clean so you could drink it. I want to start talking about all of these things, even more so, the practical things. So if stuff goes down, it's not about fear mongering, because when you know you have the knowledge to protect yourself and live a certain way, that's not anything about fear. Fear is not being prepared. Fear is waking up in a situation and you're like, oh my God, I didn't think about that. So if it's something that's frivolous, if it's something that's superficial, you don't need to be bothered with it. More and more each day, I'm simplifying my life, focusing on what I need to do for myself. And I'm always open to share and help. But if a person's going to waste your time, definitely wasting their time, you don't need to be bothered with that part of them. It can even be family members. You know what I mean? Doesn't mean you hate them. There's certain conversations after you bring it up to help them, they'll turn around and talk about you. But don't bring those things up anymore. Still love them, but realize they're not ready for that. And a lot of people are going to be caught off guard. But I'm going to see if I can get this video together to get up tonight. There was something I was doing wrong in the program that I'm learning. So if not, I'm going to just have to go back to the old program and bring things up. So anyway, thank you so much for being here. Much love to you all. You know, LanceScurv out. Serious. I love you all. Serious. Big part of my life.